Would I be the asshole if I set boundaries with my mum about my son? This is going to be a long one, so buckle up. I gave birth 6 weeks ago to my first child, a little boy. My mom was over the moon excited. I knew she might have a little trouble with boundaries, but it has gotten so much worse than I thought. For starters, she accidentally, whether truly an accident or not, I don't know, calls herself Mum. My dad has even done it. He said, "I'll hand you to Mum, Mimi," her name instead of Grandma. He then proceeded to hand him to her, even though I asked for him. In addition, she won't let me hold him or do anything for him when I am at her house. If I tried to feed him, she jumps in and takes over. If he's laying down and wakes up and starts crying, she rushes to comfort him instead of giving me a chance. If I say, "Let me see him," she very seriously asks me why. I usually follow up with, "Because he's my son." She'll be very hesitant to hand him back, and it'll usually take a minute or two. She also constantly says she loves me and my brothers, but she loves my baby more than us. She constantly implies her love for him supersedes the love my wife and I have for him. I have been recovering from a C-section for the past 6 weeks, and I am returning to my job next week. She is going to be my daycare. I am worried her lack of boundaries will result in him getting far too attached to her and not as attached to us. Now, you may be saying, of course you wouldn't be the asshole for setting boundaries, because that's what my wife says. I feel really bad because she's had a hysterectomy after she gave birth to me because of cancer when she desperately wanted more kids. She sees this as an opportunity to live vicariously through me. She also has untreated mental health issues that have not really been addressed by our family. OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. I feel like I may be the asshole because I'm being insecure and my mum has been through a lot and I don't want to make it worse. OP, I get where you're coming from here, but when you married your wife and when you had this kid, you signed up for putting them first and foremost. And if your wife doesn't think that this is the best approach, and you also don't think this is the best approach to parenting your child, where she is just taking so much of that attention to the point that it will negatively impact your relationship with your child and your wife's relationship, I think maybe listen to your gut instinct on this one. I understand it looks like a very much uphill battle with your mother, and there are many reasons coming down that hill as to why you potentially could be an asshole for this. But in this situation, and with what you've given me so far, I think you are not the asshole if you do set those boundaries up. I think it is necessary. I think it may be mean, it may really affect your mother, but it's necessary for your family. And you and your wife both wouldn't be assholes for doing so my judgment is not the asshole for this one. Now in the comments, not the asshole. If they can't respect the fact that you are the mum, don't let them spend time with your baby. Quote, she sees this as an opportunity to live vicariously through me. She also has untreated mental health issues. This is a problem that she needs to fix. Find alternative childcare. Do not let her babysit. Her behavior will only get worse with having so much unsupervised time with your child. Oh my gosh, no. Do not let her babysit. That will be a huge mistake. She has to learn some boundaries immediately. Not the asshole. Not the asshole for wanting to set boundaries. Now, this may make me unpopular, but after everything you said here, I feel you would be the asshole if you let her babysit. There is absolutely no way that she is going to respect your boundaries. I think she'll make this situation much worse, if you are correct and she has untreated mental health issues. She's going to view herself as the mum, and that's how she's going to have your son refer to her. She's actually doing it right now, in front of you. You honestly believe she's going to do as you wish when you are not around to supervise them? If she is your daycare and this goes south, you will only have yourselves to hold accountable. Letting someone in her situation, with her frame of mind, watch your son, is like leaving an addict who is not in any treatment with their favorite drug and expecting them not to use it because you told them not to. And OP replies, this is probably the one that I needed to hear the most. I'm a very non-confrontational person. I'm scared I won't have anybody to watch my child. I'm suffering from postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety, so I don't trust daycare. But at least there would be healthy boundaries. Also, please change her grandma name to something not Mimi. That lets her use the excuse of letting the kid call her mama. I understand your apprehension about leaving your child with people you don't know. I don't know what your options are for daycare, but do your research. Find the one that you feel will work best and that you can afford. Please, be sure to discuss your PPD with your doctor. You want to be sure that it's being addressed. Make sure that you are speaking to your wife about your concerns and that you are both together in what you feel is best for both you and your son. When it comes to your health and your son, you will need to be strong. You may need to confront your mom and make certain that you are being respected. Set your boundaries and enforce them. Stay strong. You can do this. Not the asshole. Yeah, this is already really unhealthy. What happens when your mom starts making decisions about how to care for her baby that you don't agree with? I think you need a different solution for childcare, and your mom needs therapy. Her hysterectomy is not your fault. Your baby is your baby, and you need to be respected as his mother. Big boundaries. Listen to your wife. And now on to the update. I took everyone's advice to heart. I've only ever wanted to keep my son safe and happy. I sat my mum down with my wife, and we tried to have a civil discussion about boundaries. She flipped the F out and started accusing us of taking him away from her. She said things like, "How do you expect me to just not love him?" We decided then we were gonna limit contact between him and her. We are financially in a place now where a licensed daycare is available to us, although since I receive WIC and other benefits, I want to reach out and see if we can receive assistance at all. I have not taken him completely out of her life, however I am much more firm with her. Like some of you said, I demanded she change her nickname to Grandma instead of Mimi. I would repeat things firmly such as, "I am his mother and I am taking my baby now." However, she has not let up with her obsession over him. She regularly refers to him as our baby when bragging about him. She has actually gotten worse and now criticizes everything I do as a mother. She is very quick to get upset when he reacts positively to me, since, I'm his mom, and doesn't react the same to her. I am considering going completely no contact with her for this reason. However, it may take a bit, because I have to separate myself from her in a lot of ways. I just wanted to update and thank everybody for the advice. It really woke me up to the fact that I was thinking of her and her needs over the health and safety of my son. Now in the comments, I'm sorry that you are going through this. I had a similar experience with my mom, although my mom was pretty tame compared to yours. She started giving him a nickname that I hated and had to be very forceful about. I had to hammer home some boundaries which resulted in her crying to my dad and sister. Then I had to set my dad and sister straight too. It was an uncomfortable time. I ultimately threatened to move hundreds of miles away, and then everybody started to behave. I was consistent with boundaries, and I think that's why everyone started to behave better with me and my son. And OP replies, I have been very consistent with boundaries. I don't want to take him out of her life completely because my in-laws are not consistent, and I want him to have grandparents. But it's getting to the point that no contact seems to be the best bet. My mom was also very verbally abusive to me growing up, and shows a lot of signs of being a narcissist. It is just a hot mess, but I'm glad I had a bunch of strangers telling me what I was already thinking. Look, shitty grandparents are not better than no grandparents. My sister and I really regret that my mom felt forced to keep her abusive mother in our lives. Grandma caused a lot of emotional pain and confusion. It's hard to be a little kid and realize your grandma is mean, crazy, or nasty to your mom. Not the asshole, but I highly recommend going no contact for your child's well-being. And OP replies, yep, that's why we're going no contact. I've said in other comments, but it is extremely difficult for me to go no contact right now for a lot of reasons, but I am slowly separating and cutting him out of her life entirely. I want to do what is best for him. I'm low contact with my parents for various reasons, one of which is my own mother's response to my child. She loves my son. No questions about that, but she does similar to yours, just to a slightly lesser extent. My sister and I were pregnant at the same time, and made a joke about having our mother's name to the kids be something similar to Mum. TV show reference is why, but I didn't want my son to actually call her that for obvious reasons. Even after 4 years, my mother still makes snide remarks about how one kid calls her by her chosen grandma name, but my son just calls her grandma. Sometimes limiting or cutting off contact completely is the best choice parents can make for their kids. Best of luck to you in the future. Also, make sure your daycare knows to never release your child to her even if she claims there has been an emergency. No contact, I think, is the best bet. And make sure that actions have consequences if you eventually reallow contact. Every time you refer to grandma as mum, we will immediately leave and you are on a 2-week timeout. Anytime you do not immediately hand over my son when I ask, we will leave and go no contact for a week, etc., etc. You need to do this now, before she could possibly try to sue you for grandparents' rights. And adding to this, have a code word set with the daycare in case of emergency so there is no ambiguity or chance your mum can talk them round without it. OP, please be careful and maybe start limiting visits. As long as you let her have access to your child, she's going to keep up this behavior. You are doing great setting your boundaries, but your mum has also let you know that she does not understand or respect them, even if she's following them for now. Keep that consistency, and when you get a daycare, please give them strict instructions about not letting your mother pick up your son. What she is doing is above and beyond an obsessive grandma. She wants your child to be her child. Don't worry about overreacting or how your relationship with her might be hurt. Your focus is on protecting your son. Keep at it and act with an abundance of caution regarding your mother. And OP replies, me and my wife already discussed that nobody on my side of the family is allowed to pick him up from daycare just in case. So, as it happens, I missed a section back up in that post, which I will read now, which is just, pain. Edit. Alrighty, buckle up. I know everyone wants to know how much of a nightmare she is. Her and my wife work at the same job. Should have mentioned that. It makes it way more complicated to separate from her. My wife is trans and is not out to anybody but me, my mum, and a few of her friends. Well, today my mother informed me, in confidence, that she outed my wife to her HR director. This is like a Lifetime movie, but it just keeps getting worse and worse. She put my wife's job at risk, making it so if she lost her job, it would be harder for us to support our child. I think that she has a bigger plan for all of this. Am I the asshole for telling another gym member to wear a bra? I, 25 female, freaking hate wearing bras. They are uncomfortable, constricting, and expensive. With work from home, I spent the last 1.5 years basically never wearing a bra and got used to it. Quite frankly, my boobs are non-existent anyways. I recently started going to the gym again and started working out braless. I should note that up until now, no one has ever pointed out anything wrong with me not wearing a bra. However, in the middle of a set of squats, yes, mid-squat, a guy comes up to me, taps me on the shoulder to get my attention, and yells that my nipples are poking through my shirt. I get really irritated because why the hell is this guy staring at my nipples in the first place and then stopping me mid-set to inform me? I get really annoyed, try to finish my set, but then this fricko literally grabs the bar as I ascend and re-racks it for me. He claimed it looked like I was having trouble with the last rep and that he had to come over to make sure I could do it, then noticed my nipples. I'm really frickin' pissed off at this point, and told him I didn't need his help finishing my set, and why the F was he looking at my chest in the first place. He said he was going to spot me, but then noticed my chest and thought it'd be inappropriate. I pointed out that the safety bar was set, so even if I did fail the set, he wasn't needed. But he just insisted people at gyms look out for each other, and that going forward, I should probably wear a bra so other people wouldn't get uncomfortable and that it may help me stay more balanced in my squats. I am literally the only girl at the weight section of the gym at the moment, and the other guys who were squatting and failed sets never have to worry about this crap. I have seen guys fail multiple sets in a row and no one ever rushes to their aid, but I have a very slight pause and everyone thinks I need rescuing. So I'm now really annoyed, and also kind of uncomfortable that this guy I've never spoken to in my life thinks he's helping me, and then has the audacity to tell me how to dress. So I tell him, "You have bigger boobs and nipples than I do. Maybe you should wear a bra so people won't get uncomfortable and you won't fail your squats." He then got really defensive, saying he was just trying to help, then called me a cow. Honestly, I'm not sure if I overreacted, but I'm still kinda pissed off, so maybe that's clouding my judgment. Am I the asshole? Edit to add, I'm not sure if people think I'm walking around and it's extremely obvious my nipples are showing. I actually really hate constricting clothes. My t-shirt size is X small, but I wear size large to the gym, and pretty much everywhere lately. And you can't tell my stomach from my chest. My nipples might have been showing a little more while squatting because I was wearing a lifting belt. Now in the comments, not the asshole. Report it to your gym. He had no right to comment on your body at all, and no right to try and assert his help onto you. If he can't control himself from staring at another person's body, then he shouldn't be at a place where he is going to encounter all manner of bodies. Also, as someone with boobs, sometimes your nips show through a padded bra. I have never worn a sports bra that didn't headlight people pretty much the entire time I had it on. His argument doesn't even make sense if you know how boobs work. Since this is an Am I the Asshole site, I felt a "but not all men" comment was needed here. Ducks and runs. As a guy who doesn't wear any extra layers to mask his own nipples, either at work or otherwise, I doubly don't have any business telling anyone else how they should or shouldn't look. Reading OP's post, I both wanted to online throat punch that guy, and was also very, very saddened that women still have to navigate that kind of utter bullcrap. So stupid and pointless. Not the asshole. He was harassing you, and you should tell management about it. As a fellow bra hater, it's no one's effing business if I wear a bra or not. 100% this is sexual harassment, and taking the bar from her and racking it is taking it to another level. And the suggestion that wearing a bra would make you better at lifting is just frickin' wild. Not the asshole, and report that guy. Not the asshole. I'm a male, but I can see from here that he wanted to be a knight in shining armor for a damsel in distress. He was then obviously disappointed that you didn't need saving, so defaulted to being a jackass in a poor attempt to save face and keep talking, which obviously allowed him to look at your nipples, whilst also pretending, "I'm not like the other guys." And now on to the update. Thanks so much for all the feedback on my original post. A couple people said that it was just a validation post, but to be honest, after you go off on someone like that publicly, getting a lot of attention, you do kind of feel like an asshole. Even when you feel it's justified, so yeah. I finally did start wearing bras again, and not at all because of this incident, but because I had been dealing with depression that made me not really try to get dressed in general, not just at the gym, and dressing for success has been a small way to try to get myself back into a better place mentally. Anyways, the guy goes to the gym roughly the same time I do most days, so unfortunately, I did have to see him again. Even though I really wanted to grab his bar out of fake concern while he was squatting, I mostly ignored him, until 2 days ago. I was deadlifting and recording myself to check my form. The guy comes over and says something like, "You know, sumo is cheating, right?" I get this comment a lot, mostly from men half joking, and it's annoying, but I just completely ignore him. He repeats it a little louder, and I continue to ignore him. I guess he sees that I was recording myself, because then he asks if I have an Instagram. I don't post my lifts on Insta, and if he could follow me. I keep ignoring him. Finally, he says something like, "See, your form is so much better now that you're wearing a bra." And I effing lost it again. I screamed at him that he's a disgusting, harassing piece of crap. Honestly, I don't remember exactly what I said, but it was, admittedly, very vulgar and got a lot of attention. A worker came over and asked if something was wrong, and I said that the guy was sexually harassing me for 2 weeks and asked to speak to a manager. The guy denied it and said he was just trying to help and that I was being sensitive. But either way, the manager asked what was going on and got both our stories. Because I had been recording my lifts, I actually had a video of him where he commented on my bra. So the manager gave him a 30-day ban and told me that if he ever bothered me again, to let her know, and she would permanently ban him. So I feel kind of vindicated, but I also feel a little frustrated that just one man actually saw consequences for this kind of behavior towards women in the gym. It's nice to see someone having repercussions for their actions, but it's also exhausting dealing with this kind of thing constantly at the gym, even if it isn't quite as overt. But I guess I'll have to keep calm and lift on. Now in the comments, well done. I'm glad he had his ass given back to him. He had no place talking to you like that. Who the hell does he think he is? His opinion isn't important like he thinks. You shouldn't have to, but it was well worth recording your sessions. Keep kicking ass. Oh, but he just wanted to help. God knows women know absolutely nothing about bras. Certainly not as much as that random man. Sarcasm. Yeah, that was a satisfying read. And even if you started wearing bras again, no judgment there. I know I couldn't not wear them. I'm glad it wasn't for him. You do whatever is right for you and ignore nosy assholes like him. You've done a good thing, and I'm sorry you had to personally take the hit for the rest of us. I don't even pull sumo, but find what he said rage-inducing. Same. A gym is supposed to be a safe place to work on yourself. If sumo works best for you, then you should just do sumo. If you have to make it into a competition, there is organized competitions for that. Watch out for this creep outside the gym. Never know if he's lurking around. I hate that the victims of harassment have to worry more about the consequences than the perpetrators. I can't believe he had the nerve to bother you again after last time. Very glad you were recording and that there were consequences for his actions. I doubt you were the only one he's been harassing there too. Our next post is titled, Am I the Asshole? I took my friend's cat to a boarding kennel after she dropped them at my house. I don't like animals. I know that probably makes me an asshole in many people's eyes, but I just don't. I particularly don't like domestic cats, especially if they're allowed to roam around outside. That said, animals are living things and I wouldn't deliberately harm one. My friend group knows my stance. I've been asked to animal sit in emergencies before and have been happy to do it to help people out of a tight spot. I do the best I can with my limited knowledge. It's always been for a day or two at most. Last week, I got a phone call from a friend asking me to mind her cat for a day or two, as she had something that she needed to do urgently. I agreed and went over to her house after work to do cat things. The litter tray was full, there was cat poo on the floor, there was no food in the house and no water in the bowl. The stench as I entered made me retch. I looked around and couldn't find anything cat-related, so I called my friend. She said she hadn't had time to buy anything, and could I go to the shops? I asked her when she would be back, and she hedged around it a bit and finally told me that she was camping with her boyfriend and wouldn't be back for at least 2 weeks. I gave it some water and defrosted some mints I found in the freezer so it wouldn't starve. I told her that I wouldn't look after her cat for that long. She said there was no one else, so I did some research, found a reputable boarding kennel, and sent her the details. It was $37 a day. I had her send me some credit card details and dropped the cat off the next morning. She came back 2 days later and was angry with me because I could have done this one thing for her, and she had to cut her trip short because she didn't have the money to pay the boarding fees. I told her I would never have agreed to mind her cat in the first place, and I thought the conditions she left it in were disgraceful. She snapped that I had no idea what I was talking about because my heart was black and empty because I don't like animals. I laughed and told her that a truly evil person would have dumped her cat at the pound. Our friend group is divided. The cat lovers don't understand how I wouldn't want this opportunity. Others think I was completely in the right. Now in the comments, not the arsehole, and I would have reported her to animal welfare as well. Same, to be honest. She sounds like a horrendous pet owner. True. And I'm shocked any of the cat lovers in the friend group are defending a cat owner who keeps a cat in these conditions. Why couldn't the cat owner ask one of them for help? As a cat owner, I would be tearing her a new one. You don't ask someone to cat sit without planning for food and such. You don't leave the house if the litter is full and there's no water. How long was she gone for the house to be in that state? Do they just live in filth? That poor cat is going to develop renal issues. She should also only plan a trip if she can factor in the costs of a cat sitter, stocking the house, and possible vet emergencies. Mine is a professional who comes in every other day and costs me 100 of my own currency per day, which is $20-something. I've planned monthly trips before, knowing there was going to be a significant added cost. That is just how it goes when you have a pet. I also wouldn't invite the cat-hating friend to come in, as they likely wouldn't play with the poor, understimulated, and lonely cat properly. OP's friend sucks on several levels. Absolutely not the asshole. Not liking animals doesn't make you a bad person. It does mean that you have insight into your own abilities, or lack thereof. You made a sensible, rational decision in the best interest of the cat. Your friend is rude and entitled though. What a scummy thing to do to leave you with a cat in that condition. You could also report them to whatever your equivalent of the RSPCA is. Not the asshole. You should have taken the cat into the pound. She obviously can't be a good pet owner. She is failing the cat, and is a terrible friend and selfish person. And OP replies, I did seriously consider it, but they're a kill shelter, and no matter how I feel about cats, it didn't deserve to be condemned. In hindsight, the cat rescue place might have been a better option. I'm kind of panicked though. Didn't really think things through. You did nothing wrong. Your choices were to either give her cat away, she doesn't deserve a cat, or to ensure she still has a cat that will be taken care of. You chose the latter. Hopefully she'll learn from this interaction that pet care has a cost and price, and that she can't just bully people into doing it for free. And now on to the update. Hello Redditors. So in short, the cat will be going to a new home. When I dropped it off, the kennel said that it was in very poor condition. I told them what I'd found, and they apparently contacted the RSPCA. After all your helpful comments, I did too. I didn't take any photos, but because there had already been a report, they sent someone around to have a look. I don't know exactly what happened, but the cat has been removed. Apparently it's a purebred ragdoll. It needs some vet work and some time to rebuild condition, but it should have no trouble being adopted. I had to give a statement about what I found. My friend group was angry with me at first, until I gave my side of the story. Apparently, she had been gone 3 days before she called me. She was telling everyone I promised to look after the cat, and didn't go round. I looked through my call register and emails, and there was nothing from her at all. So now she's not my friend anyhow, and the cat lovers think I did the right thing. Several of them tried to convince me to take the cat, but I opted not to. I've seen what happens to animals that aren't cared for properly. No way am I ever going to be that person. Thank you for your advice and comments. I'm going to set very strict boundaries for any future pet. And now in the comments, thank you for getting the cat out of there, and for understanding your own boundaries. Way too many people get pets on a whim because they are lonely, when it's a living being with a personality and needs that oftentimes don't line up with yours. So it's great to see you stand up for an animal and for yourself. Don't worry what the former friend thinks of you. Who wants to be on the good side of an animal abuser? Did any one of the friend group call out that friend? She deserted her cat for a few days before calling you, and as a result, the cat was in poor health. That is so sad. The cat was likely in poor health before the 3 days. Cats can be pretty self-sufficient for the most part, and 3 days of no care wouldn't put the cat in such a bad situation that the boarding place felt the need to contact animal services. Also, with such neglect, there's a possibility of low or no water access. While cats are independent, this is clearly a case of ignoring basic needs. Oh no, that poor baby ragdoll. They are such lovely cats. My cat is half ragdoll, and he's the most chill cat I've ever met. They cannot survive without humans. Poor kitty. So glad you got them out of that situation. OP's former friend's cat is going to be in the shelter about half an hour before someone snaps it up, I bet. They are beautiful cats, but I only ever rescue cats, so I'd never expect to end up with one. It's quite rare you see them for rehoming like that. And our next post is titled, Am I the Asshole for Outing My Sister to Her Kids? Her kids were having a sleepover. We've always had this picture of my family up from when we were really young, and this was the first time her kids ever asked about it. She has also seen the picture and never commented on it. They asked who she was in the picture. My sister started transitioning in high school, so I don't really think of her as trans. Like, I know she wasn't always a woman, but old pictures of her are just pictures of her to me. And I sort of assume people know, and it's not a big dark secret. Naturally, I respond honestly. I told them that that was their mum. Her daughter said she looked like a boy, and I said she was. I tried to explain that she was a boy, but now she's not, and her son thought it was funny. But it made her daughter really upset. I was surprised she kept it from them. It didn't come up again after that. Her and her husband picked the kids up eventually, and neither kid seemed upset about it. Overall, it was a pretty good sleepover. A few hours later, I have her husband on the phone asking what I said and calling me insane. He said my sister is distraught. He was saying I outed her and how cruel that was, but kids are pure. Outing means nothing to them because they can teach them empathy and understanding. There is nothing to be afraid of being outed to a kid. Still, I did out her, which I apologized for. I eventually got her on the phone, and she said she's really upset with me, but she understands I didn't mean to cause any harm. I asked her if she was ever planning to tell her kids, and she said she wasn't sure. I was shocked at that. My sister isn't typically a dishonest person at all. Both kids even know that they are adopted. I told her I did her kids a favor, which I believe, and then she said I'm never sorry about anything. I think outing is horrible, but in this situation, was it justified? My husband also agrees it's the kind of lie that would have left her children distrustful of her in the future. OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. Outing is a horrible thing, even if I feel this situation was unique. Also, it was definitely not my place to tell them as opposed to her or her husband. And now in the comments, you're the asshole. That conversation was not your place, period. You should have told her to ask her parents about it and moved on. I understand that you didn't intend to cause a problem, but being thoughtless about something can still be being an asshole. I'm glad it doesn't seem to be causing a permanent rift between you and your sister, but definitely you're the asshole here. I could almost give OP a pass for unwittingly outing their mum if she had just apologized, but clearly that apology meant nothing since she went on to say she did her kids a favor. Another big issue I have is that at no point did she call her sister to even give her a heads up about what happened so she could prepare. Those two things specifically made me very harsh in my judgment. That was my first thought when I read what OP did. When my daughter had been at my mum's and a big question comes up, the first thing she does is message me and say, hey, we were talking and X came up. Usually stuff related to her bio dad who abandoned her a few years ago. When it comes to big, important topics, when they unintentionally come up, the parents need to know. Exactly. The whole post was justification after justification without remorse. I don't like to be mean, and I felt very mean in my response and judgment, but she really overstepped, and I'm willing to bet, based on her sister's statement, that she does it all the time. You're the asshole, big time. That was a conversation for your sister to have with the kids when she was ready. It is not your story to tell. You could have just deferred that situation to your sister. Now it can't be taken back, and you robbed her of her ability to do this on her terms. She is the parent, and it's not your place to decide what is deceptive or not when it comes to her identity. And these are 8 and 6-year-olds. I highly doubt OP handled this in a way that was appropriate for kids that young. It's crazy to me OP decided to do this, and so seriously inappropriate. And back up to the post, there is the update. Okay, I'm in the wrong. The few people agreeing with me have been majority extremely rude and transphobic to my sister. I'll be apologizing to her. Please understand, I did not want to make this a place where transphobes could spout rhetoric. Am I the asshole for kicking my boyfriend out over my cat? For context, my 24 female boyfriend, 30 male and I recently moved in together. It's something we've been talking about, and when his lease ended, he moved into my apartment. I have a cat, Millie, who is my baby girl that I've had since she was a kitten. Back when my boyfriend and I first started dating, he made the joke that if we were going to ever live together, he'd have to get rid of that cat, which I dismissed at the time. When he would come over, he would ignore Millie, making jokes about how cats are stuck up, how much he's a dog person. Again, I dismissed this because he never acted hostile towards her. I figured it was just a preference. When we started to get serious about moving in, he asked if I would consider giving her away because he didn't like the idea of living with a cat. I almost laughed before realizing he was serious. I told him that under no circumstances would I get rid of my cat. I felt guilty about being unwilling to compromise, but he actually took it well, and reassured me that if she was this important to me, he would get over it. Fast forward to last night, I don't think he realized I was in the kitchen when he came home. Millie was on the couch, and I heard him go into the room and give this sigh, and before I could call out, I heard him say, "You're so effing worthless." It terrified me because I'd never heard him speak with such malice. He sounded like a different person. It was just so cold and hostile that I panicked and rushed out there to see him looking at Millie. Here is where I might be the asshole. I completely freaked out. I was yelling, asking what he thought he was doing talking to her like that. He jumped and I scooped Millie up and told him to leave my apartment right now. He looked so stunned and started to argue, asking where was he supposed to go. I told him that I don't care, he just needs to leave. He was pissed and said he was going for a drive and slammed the door behind him. I immediately started sobbing and holding Millie. I was shaking, and she could tell I was upset and kept cuddling me. She calmed me down, and later when he texted asking if he could come back, I said yes. I put Millie in the bedroom so we could talk. We were both a lot calmer, and I felt awful after he explained his side. I'll often call Millie little names, and he said he was just trying to be playfully mean too, and he misjudged his tone. But he said that it felt awful that I chose a cat over him, and that I called it my apartment, when it's supposed to be our place. He told me he was constantly feeling second best to Millie, who I wouldn't even consider rehoming, and I had thrown him out over an animal when he is a person. I explained to him how much he means to me, and apologized for ever making him feel like this wasn't his home. I think I might have overreacted, but I just don't know. He is my boyfriend, and she's something I keep refusing to compromise on, but I also don't believe that he's just misjudged his tone. Am I the asshole? Now in the comments, not the asshole. And you need to get this man out of your life ASAP before your cat disappears or mysteriously dies. He hates your cat, he doesn't want to be around your cat. He has shown you who he is, so believe him because he will absolutely torment your cat. People like that don't change. Anyone who is this sneakily nasty to a cat will be just as nasty to people. You allowed him into your apartment. Why do you call it ours, when clearly he means to take it over? Too many red flags here. Think about it. Not the asshole. Pets, whether cats or dogs or any other species, are not disposable accessories to be cast aside when something new comes along. When we adopt them, we are committing to taking care of them for the rest of their lives. Just because they are not the same species doesn't mean they aren't family. Your boyfriend sounds both massively immature and manipulative. I'd choose your cat over him any time. And now onto the update. First of all, wow! I did not expect the flood of supportive comments, messages, and awards. I tried to respond to as many messages as I could, at least the ones that weren't wildly hateful, but I genuinely appreciated all of the kind words and concern for me and Millie. Everybody's comments were extremely eye-opening. I felt sick to my stomach reading about people afraid for Millie, and it had already crossed my mind, honestly. Making that post validated all the fears that I had kept dismissing as dramatic. and it was almost a relief to be encouraged by strangers to do something I had previously been too afraid to do. We broke up. It's my apartment. He wasn't on the lease yet, and he's going to stay with his brother. I had to read around about gaslighting, and my sisters would agree with all of you about that one. It was hard to lose somebody I trusted and thought that I knew well, but based on his reaction, I knew I made the right call. He essentially told me that if I couldn't learn to put other humans before my cat, I would be alone for a very long time, and that he'd be waiting for me to reach out. Millie doesn't deserve to be just tolerated. She deserves to be safe and be treated like the little princess she is by anybody I live with. She has seen me through so much, and I'd rather be alone than her wandering around the side of the road somewhere, and I am absolutely terrified of her ever being hurt. It isn't worth the risk. I'm okay with it just being her and I for now. Thanks everybody for the advice. Now in the comments, when my boyfriend moved in, he babied my cats so much, I'm pretty sure he was their favorite human, and I was relegated to the position of backup slave. We since got another cat together, and I could never date someone who didn't love animals. Good for you and Millie. There are better guys out there. I'm a dog person 100%, but I live with my significant other and his cat, and our dogs. The cat drives me crazy. He's up at 5 a.m., and for some reason, he loves me more than my significant other, so he has to sit on my face in the morning. And he drools. What kind of cat drools? He also claws the furniture and screams like a tiny demon when you ignore him. Even with all that, I still love that little idiot, and I would never ask my significant other to get rid of him. He is family. He may be annoying as hell, and I'm not a cat person at all, but he is still my little fluffy baby. So what I'm saying is good for you, OP. You will definitely find someone who will love you and your adorable cat. Our next post is titled, Am I the Asshole for Being Upset When My Parents Announced That My Mum Is Pregnant? I am 16, I am an adoptee. My parents have always wanted biological kids. They have been doing the IVF thing for a long time. It finally worked. They had invited my grandparents for breakfast today, and they announced that they were pregnant. Everyone was really happy and hugged it out. I tried to pretend that I'm happy, but I couldn't. I was really shocked. It just felt like something they did that would never work, but it had finally worked. My parents didn't say anything about it, but my grandma pulled me aside and told me when we were alone that I should be happy for my parents. They have struggled for years, and I am being a selfish brat, and I should try to be a good elder sister when their child was born. I know that I should be happy for them, but honestly I just want to cry. I can't really explain why I feel that way. I feel so selfish. My parents are so happy, and they have spent so much time and money on it. They are overjoyed. I feel like someone who is ruining the vibes and making them all unhappy. I should have just faked a smile. And now in the comments, I'm sorry you were hurt. I don't think anyone is the asshole here. I think you have mixed feelings and that is okay. You will grow to love your sibling. You might just feel insecure with how this will affect your place in the family. You cannot be replaced. You will not be less loved. You are important to your parents and are their first child, their first loves. Everything is going to be okay, sweetheart. It might help to tell your parents how you're feeling, so maybe you can work through it in therapy. I'm sure you will love your new sibling and will be the best big sister they could ask for. Grandma is an asshole, OP is not the asshole. OP is allowed to be nervous, scared, and hurt, especially if they weren't told ahead of time. Grandma had no business invalidating their feelings. You're right, I don't know how I missed that. The grandmother was very insensitive and brash. OP needs to sit her parents down and talk to them about her concern and what Grandma said. Not the asshole. I probably shouldn't be stirring the pot here, but I think they should have told you first in private, and your grandma was cruel in my opinion. If you hold on to these feelings and let them build to resentment of the child, that is not great. But hopefully your parents will listen to how you feel and work through it positively with you. It must be scary and different, and no one should blame you for feeling that way. You haven't done anything wrong. I totally get where OP is coming from. OP's parents adopted a child, but that clearly wasn't enough for them. They spent years and untold thousands of dollars on IVF. Teens can be insecure, and OP's parents didn't even tell OP first. OP must have all kinds of feelings of not being enough, of not being part of the family, of not belonging. Jesus, I felt all those things as a teen while desperately wishing that I had been adopted because that would explain why I didn't fit in with the rest of my family. OP is not the asshole. I think parents and grandma are. There needs to be some family therapy ASAP. So I don't think this calls for are you the asshole or not. You genuinely cannot help how you feel. However, they chose you, hun. You were their first baby, even if you were 16. Yes, they also chose this baby, but they saw you and thought, wow, this is going to be our baby. This is going to be the reason we are so happy. Don't ever think this child is above you just because they physically had him or her. You are both equal. They will love you both the same, no matter how both of you came about to be a family, and as for the grandmother, she was wrong to say any kind of input. It doesn't concern her. Don't listen to her. Maybe sit down with your parents and talk about how you feel. I'm sure they'll say the same as I did, love. And now on to the update. So many comments, it really helped me feel less like an asshole and talk to my parents about it. They were very open to a conversation. They said they had been overwhelmed with excitement and handled it very poorly by not telling me. I think they saw why I may be worried, and they told me why they wanted to do IVF rather than try to adopt again. I was fostered before being adopted, and one of my relatives tried to gain custody but failed. I knew that, but they have always told this as in a manner where they always knew they would be able to adopt me, but I guess they didn't know they would get to raise me. Mum told me that they had already fallen in love with me, and at one point, they were so sure they would lose me that they had to say their goodbyes to me. They were both close to tears when they talked about it, but my relative failed to show up to court, and I ended up being adopted by my mum and dad. It is very sad. I have never realized how stressful that would have been for them. We've talked a lot, and I was way less scared about the baby. And now in the comments, thank you for your update and your honesty. It sounds as if you are with loving parents that care a lot about you, and this is a wonderful thing to see. I can totally understand how they got traumatized with the court case. The thought that your child can be taken away from you is terrible, and I understand that they don't want to go through something like this anymore. It only shows you that you are their child by heart, that they treasure you, and that through you, they felt that they have enough love for another kid in their lives. The heart only grows with more people in it, and I am sure your sibling will add a whole lot of love to your family. All the best to you. It's going to be okay, OP. This baby will be a change in your family dynamics, but you are very much still an integral part of your family. This baby is not your replacement. They are your sibling. By the way, have you spoken to your parents about how your grandmother spoke to you? I didn't care for her tone or her opinions on how she thought that you should react. It's something your parents need to be aware of, as they are welcoming a biological child. This is new territory for everybody, so keep the communication strong. Your parents obviously love you very much. This is one of the best updates one could hope for. I'm so glad that you were all able to have a talk through, and I hope that you're able to find joy in having a younger sibling. Me and my eldest siblings have about the same age gap, and while it's kind of weird growing up with much older siblings, it's also really great life perspective. I am a much different person than I would have been if my siblings were closer in age, and I genuinely love and appreciate the influence they had in my life. You get to be that for someone, and I think that's pretty great. And our next post is titled, Am I the asshole for laughing in my husband's face over sitting at the head of the table? As a background, I, 22 female, work full-time and am the only person in the house who cooks. He claims he cannot. We have been together 4 years and married for 1.5. My husband, 24 male, goes to school full-time on the GI Bill. I was out of state and away from him for 5 weeks and got back yesterday. Tonight, while he was napping, I cooked dinner and made dessert, and when he was awake, I asked him where he wanted to eat. The options were the couch, the game room, as we have a couch in there, the bar in the kitchen, or the dining table. He said wherever, so I set our plates at the dining table, which has 6 chairs, 1 at either end and 2 on each side. Since it's the 2 of us, I put 1 plate at the head of the table and 1 at the right-hand seat. I sat at the head of the table for no reason at all, other than I got there first. He came behind me and said, "You took my seat." And I laughed and said, "What?" To which he replied that he is the head of the family and he sits there. I laughed, thinking he was joking, and said, "You have to be joking." And he said no and tried to tickle me out of the chair. I laughed and said, "Sit down so we can eat." He stood there and said that if I didn't move, he was eating on the couch. I did not move and told him we were equals, and that notion is ridiculous. He didn't budge, and I told him if he went, I would actually be upset. He ate on the couch, and so I told him I was upset. Am I the asshole? Not the asshole, but what a strange thing for him to dig in on. OP replies, "I had the same reaction. I told him if he wanted to, he could sit at the other end of our 7-foot table. Do this, but make sure you have plenty of paper and a pen so you won't have to yell and can write notes and shoot them across as paper planes. Is that not becoming of the man of the house? Then let's go with more traditional, shall we? Hire a teen to be your page boy for the night and stand by your end of the table, wait for you to say something, walk to your husband and deliver the message. And that is how you must communicate for the duration. But remember, as lady of the house, he must not take a single bite until you have both steeped your tea and settled your skirts. All hard-cooked foods must be served by a male, while all soft-cooked foods are to be served by a lady. A gentleman never drinks spirits at the table and should not speak of funds, wood matters, or church talk, all while in your company. He must keep talk to the gardens and socials as is fitting for your ears. If he insists on taking a nightcap, remember that a lady must only drink sherry and the man only malt, and he must be the one to decant and serve. If he wants to play this game, then play we shall. Not the arsehole. It is definitely time to take stock here. Is this something completely out of the blue, or is this representative of his behavior towards you? And OP replies, "This was completely out of the blue in my opinion. He has had odd views in the past, as he comes from a relatively traditional Mexican family, but has always come round and never dug his heels in about them. This was a weird occurrence." Not the asshole at all. This sounds like a new behavior. You said you were gone for 5 weeks. I'm wondering if something happened or was said to him while you were gone. Does he have someone in his life that would mock him for being a housewife? I get he is not, but if he's got a macho friend, that friend could have made fun of him for going to school while you worked, etc. And OP replies, "I never thought of that. I will talk to him. Thank you. That's not a perspective I would have considered before." My thoughts exactly. If he's been around traditional family members more in that 5 weeks, they easily could have triggered this issue. And now back up to the post. Update. It has been 20 minutes. He came out to ask if I wanted to watch anything, and I told him we needed to have a conversation. I told him about the post for transparency. I said what y'all recommended. Asked if something happened to bring on this change, and he said that it's not a change. He always sat at the head of the table. I told him that was by chance, maybe. I asked what his thoughts on our partnership was, and if we were equals. He said yes, but it's his spot, and in his family for generations, it's a statement about the head of the family. I told him this was not past generations, and I'm concerned about his views on our equality, and that I am personally offended because I think it's sexist and misogynist and degrading to me. He said he doesn't know what I want him to say. I told him to take more time to think about it, because I will die on this hill, and he stormed off. Update 2. First, I'd like to say I'm not just going to up and divorce him. I want to understand the origin of this. We talked again, and I asked why he felt he was the head, and he said because publicly he is seen that way. If we go out, that is what people see because he is the guy, which he said is not necessarily his belief. I told him that people didn't come into our house and make that point and ask me to move. That was him. He said that it's not about being a guy, he would feel that way even as a woman. I said the thing is, he is not a woman, so his comparison isn't good. He said he felt like the leader, but not that I was inferior, and we are able to lead in different aspects. He is great at maths and analysis, I am artistic and creative. I think that's a good thing, and we are closer to the bottom, and I know there was no malice behind it, but I'm still concerned. But it was late, and I have work, so I ask him to think about 2 things for us to talk about. 1, why it's an important role for him, and why he wants to perpetuate it in our family, and 2, how he thinks it makes me feel to be in this situation. We are going to talk about it after I get home from work, and I think we'll reach resolution. Final update. Lamau, sorry y'all, the truth came out. He said it's because he thinks he is the more capable one. Background, I pushed it, explaining I know it's not a sexist thing, and that's why I'm giving him a chance to think more about it. He said it wasn't going to change, and I said I just want to understand because I believe it can't be sexist. He said he really didn't want to tell me because I'll be hurt. He said he thinks he is more capable, and there is a lot I'm capable in that he is not, but overall, he's better at a lot more than me, and he is the more capable one. No more update, nothing more to say, booked marriage counseling. Am I the asshole for scheduling a doctor's appointment without telling my mum and then expecting her to pay for it? When I was 12, I'm 17 now, I got my first period and it lasted about 2 weeks. I told my mum about it and she told me that it was normal for the first 2 years to have weird and irregular periods. My doctor told me the same thing a few months later in my yearly physical exam. Okay, fine, I'll just deal with screwed up periods for a couple of years. No big deal. 2 years pass, at age 14, my periods still aren't normal. They last 3 to 4 weeks on average, but only show up about 2, maybe 3 times a year. I tell my mum that I've surpassed 2 years, and my periods still aren't normal. I need to see a doctor. She tells me that her periods were the same way up until she started having kids, and that it's nothing to worry about. But if I really want to see a doctor, she'll schedule an appointment. I told her to schedule one, and she didn't. A few months later at my yearly physical, I tell my doctor, and he recommends me to a specialist, gives my mum the number, and tells her to schedule an appointment. My mum agrees, but never follows through with it. I remind her every couple of weeks to schedule an appointment, and she always says she will, but never does. Here we are, 3 years later, still reminding her, and she never schedules anything. My periods are still weeks long and months apart. She lost the number to the specialist. Every time I ask her to schedule something, she always tells me that her periods were the same way, and it's nothing to worry about, but she'll schedule one soon, and she never does. So a couple days ago, I called a specialist that I found online that is nearby, and I scheduled an appointment. I told my mum about it, and she is absolutely livid, demanding that I have to pay for this appointment myself since I didn't tell her about it before I scheduled it. It's not a money issue. She simply thinks that because she dealt with similar issues growing up, mine are not significant. She is the same way with every other health issue I've ever had, even ones she never experienced. It took me nearly 2 years to get her to allow me a therapist. I told her I suspected a UTI months ago. I donated blood recently and received a letter saying that my ferritin levels were concerningly low and I should see my healthcare provider. None of this is enough for my mum to schedule an appointment with anybody. Am I the asshole for taking things into my own hands? Edit to answer some questions. My dad will not do anything to define my mum. I've tried getting him to help me out in situations with her, and he will not engage. As for the insurance question, I'm calling the office tomorrow morning to ask, since they are closed for the weekend. Thank you all for the support. And yeah, little update on that. Hey y'all, for those of you wondering, I had to cancel the appointment because my family's health insurance didn't cover that office. I've asked my mum one last time to get me an appointment with an obgyn, since obviously making my own didn't work out. And if she doesn't soon, I'll contact the Planned Parenthood in my area. Thank you all so much for the advice and support. I seriously appreciate it. OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. I might be the asshole because I scheduled an appointment for myself without telling my mom and expected her to pay for it since she's agreed to schedule me one for years, but never did. Now in the comments, not the asshole. First of all, I'm livid she didn't bring you to a doctor right away. It's usually a good idea to get yearly checkups to see everything is fine. I'm guessing you haven't even had a full blood work done in all this time. And second, no, it's not normal for your periods to be this long ever. Yes, some people have irregular periods, but long periods like the one you describe can cause anemia, and can be a sign of hormonal imbalance, PCOS, or something else. You made the right decision by going to the doctor, and since you're a minor, I'm guessing she kinda has to pay. I hope it's nothing serious and you can get some answers soon. Not the asshole. It is entirely appropriate for you to see a gynecologist around your age, even if you have no problems, if only to be able to establish a relationship with one and to be able to have a confidential discussion with an expert about the medical aspects of sex, birth control, etc. The fact you are having problems, and have for years, makes it not only appropriate but essential. Some problems, if left untreated, can affect your long-term health and fertility, as well as your comfort. Do tell the doctor what your mother said. It is important for the doctor to know that your guardian is an obstacle to care when she should be helping you. It is also important for the doctor to know that your mother suffered from similar problems that were left undiagnosed and untreated, as some conditions can run in the families. It is entirely appropriate for your parents to pay for your medical care at your age. However, if that means that your mother will think that it gives her the right to be present during your appointment, I would suggest that you find a way to having the option of paying on your own if it gives you leverage to keep her out. You don't need to be in the situation where you're telling the doctor one thing and your mother is telling your doctor there is no problem. Make her pay if at all possible, but also make plans to keep her away from your doctor. You are likely to have follow-up tests from this appointment, since you were having problems, blood work, maybe an X-ray, CAT scan or MRI, possibly things like a biopsy down the road. You will need to think ahead to be able to both get to and pay for these tests in order to get the care you need. Your mother had no intention of scheduling that appointment. She just kept putting you off, hoping you would forget about it or give up. This is your body. It's the only thing that you will have with you for your entire life. Do what you need to do to address your questions and concerns, not the asshole. And now on to the update. I gave my mum one last chance to schedule me an appointment with a gynecologist. That way she'd be able to find a doctor that worked with our insurance and that she knew how to get to, like many other commenters suggested on my last post. I guess it just took an intense wake-up call for her to finally get me the help I needed, because I had my first appointment in July. It was on the way to that appointment when my mum told me that she had PCOS, but didn't tell me because she didn't think it was of concern to me. I know that I mentioned PCOS in my previous post, and many people in the comments also suggested the possibility of the diagnosis and shared their experiences with it. PCOS is polycystic ovarian syndrome, meaning the brain sends signals to the eggs in the ovaries that trigger them to grow and mature into cysts several at a time rather than one at a time, which would be what happens in a healthy system. After explaining to my doctor what my symptoms were and mentioning my mum's PCOS, she told me I had a high chance of having PCOS and a possible chance of endometriosis. She scheduled a follow-up appointment to have an ultrasound to see if I had ovarian cysts, or essentially the cause of PCOS. During that appointment, it was confirmed that I do have several cysts, multiple of which were very large. My ovaries are about 4 centimeters wide, and one of the cysts in my right ovary took up a quarter of that space. My left ovary showed the signature ring of pearls, meaning the cysts all grew along the edge of my ovary to give the illusion of pearls. Essentially, the doctor suggested putting me on Cariva birth control as the best option for me for preserving my ovaries. My mum didn't like the idea of me getting a get-out-of-jail-free card, but my dad convinced her to agree since it was the best option. Like many commenters suggested, I talked to my dad more about the medical neglect my mum has put me through since I was young, and he was better about advocating for my health with my mum. Thanks for the help and advice, everyone. Edit. The get out of jail free card that my mum was talking about was referring to the fact that my medication can be used as birth control, because she doesn't trust that I'm not going to go out and sleep with half the town now that I'm on birth control. She didn't mean it as a form of you don't deserve treatment, it was more you deserve to get pregnant if you ever have sex kind of way, as if that would be the only thing stopping me. Maybe it's both. I'm not really sure. Imagine raising your daughter all those years and then being really angry that she got a get out of jail free card and that now it's okay for her to have sex and she won't have babies? Like, genuinely, what is the logic here? She's pissed off that her daughter will be able to have safe sex? Why are these people having kids if they hate them like this? I actually hate people like this so much. Anyway, in the comments, I'm sorry, but your mum is negligent to a shocking degree. I'm glad that you were finally under medical care. And really stupid. How can you have a disease and hear your own daughter complain about the symptoms without realizing that she has the same disease? Truth is that mum knew, but either didn't care or made it about herself, and due to some reason opted not to do a thing. From the line about OP's mum being upset that the prescription birth control would be a get out of jail free card, I'm leaning the latter. OP's mum sounds bitter that her daughter was able to find a solution/treatment to their common problem and would have preferred her daughter to suffer just like she did. I'm glad that you finally got the diagnosis and treatment you needed. However, your mum's behavior was even more appalling than I initially thought it was. She knew of her condition, yet never told you about it or connected the dots on you having it. Crazy to me. I'm glad OP got help, but her mum's behavior really made me see red. She sounds like a movie villain. Her mother sounds ridiculous. Of course your medical history is of importance in regards to your biological children. And what's with the wanting to refuse the treatment, birth control, because it's a get out of jail free card? What the hell? I put all 3 of my daughters on birth control in high school. They were always told just to ask if they wanted to have birth control, and when they did ask, I took them in for a prescription. Teenagers have sex. I prefer that mine have safe, educated, protected sex. Our next post is titled, Am I the asshole for kicking my sister and her triplets out of my house when they are in need? So my sister D, 25 female, and her triplets, age 3, had to move into my, female 33, house this week as they needed repairs to theirs after a leaky pipe rendered it uninhabitable for a few weeks. Within less than 24 hours, my main bedroom's hard surfaces have been covered in crayon. My TV has been covered in jam. My partner and I are staying in our small spare room/office to give them the larger bed, and generally my house is in ruins. I don't really care about any of that, but provide it for background of the amount of disruption caused. There are 3 children potty training, with little success, and 3 adults currently in my small house, which combined with my medical condition, means my bathroom is almost perpetually in demand. I have incontinence issues, which my sister knows about and how I deal with them. I specifically asked that while they stay, that she made sure that I had access to the sole bathroom at set times. 4 20-minute blocks a day, so I can do what I need to do on a minimal schedule. Which is not really ideal for me, but the bare basics I can cope with short term. And to make sure that bath time, etc. doesn't overlap these times, in order to help me as much as possible. If I'm off schedule, the system doesn't work. Today, while bathing her kids at a time that I had reserved, Dee decided to use my condition, which I don't reveal without need, even to family, as a negative example to her children about why they should try harder to use the toilet, and told me I'd have to wait until they were done. After the kids were in bed, I asked her to make arrangements to find somewhere else to stay while her house is prepared, and that she has until Sunday afternoon to leave. I know she doesn't really have anywhere else to go, but I am so angry with her. I feel I've bent over backwards to accommodate the 4 of them, and the one thing I asked she couldn't do for me. And to make matters worse, she was using my condition to scare the kids into action, which I find extremely uncomfortable, as they now know their aunt wears nappies, and I'm now exposed to the horror of kids having no filter and not knowing what they might say in any situation from now on. The whole situation has made me feel horrible, and now I'm living on my bed wondering, am I the asshole for asking her to leave? Edit. A lot of people are commenting regarding the mess. I want to be clear that it will all be pretty easy to wipe, scrub, and mop and clean. I really don't care about having to do all that, even if I have to paint a wall that was drawn on a lot. It's just 3 kids being overexcited at staying at their aunt's. It is not a big deal. Edit 2. Yes, Dee did help with the cleaning and does try to keep them all well behaved. And edit 3. I'm overwhelmed by the amount of replies. Thank you all so much. The kids do have plastic potties, but won't use them outside of a bathroom. If anyone was using the toilet, the disruption to my schedule would be a few minutes, and I could probably be okay with that. The 20 minutes is more akin to a window than a block. The fact that my sister started to bathe them shortly before my reserved time is an issue. One I do blame her for. And the comment she made was very derogatory to me, and has left me with horribly embarrassing nicknames with the kids. Auntie Potty Pants or Auntie Poopy Pants. Now in the comments, not the arsehole. Your sister and her children have taken advantage of your hospitality and have overstayed their welcome. If I was a guest in someone's home, I wouldn't let my children destroy it, and I'd accommodate the owner's requests. She can go to a hotel. If she has homeowners or renters insurance, she may get assistance with the cost of staying in the hotel. Sometimes things just don't work out. And OP replies, I don't care about the mess. The only bit that got me was her not doing the one thing I asked for, and what she said to them was the straw that broke me. I don't blame you. Your request was medically necessary and more than reasonable. Not only was it disrespectful, but it was humiliating of her to belittle you in such a way. For that alone, she doesn't deserve your hospitality. You can probably play it off as the kids talking about pads, if they do bring it up in front of others. Honestly, if a kid told me Auntie wears nappies, I'd think that they meant pads, or maybe saggy granny panties. But she is still the asshole. And OP replies, I would do that, but unfortunately they're more likely to call me Auntie Potty Pants, which is much harder to play off. I am lying in bed right now trying to figure out how I can get them to forget about that, but at 3, they are like sponges and remember everything you don't want them to. Time to teach them all the curse words you know. All of them. Not the asshole. You must have the patience of a saint if having 3 toddlers destroying your house doesn't set you off. Your sister did not follow critical house rules. Out she goes. And OP replies, it's just mess and they are cute. But it's the one thing I asked of her. It's a medical necessity, completely unreasonable for her to violate that agreement, and saying what she did to her kids was beyond unacceptable. And now on to the update. Firstly, my thanks to everyone who commented when I made my first post. I was feeling really rough about the whole thing and was questioning everything. Your replies helped me sort out my own thoughts at a time when I needed some impartial voices, and the cleaning advice offered really helped, so thanks. Now the update. My sister and her kids moved into a holiday home on Monday. It was the fastest it could be arranged, so I ended up letting them stay an additional 24 hours. The insurance is paying for it, and it's about a half-hour away from here, so local to where we live. She's able to stay there for 2 weeks, in which time her own house will hopefully have had its repairs completed. So far, she's managed to keep crayon off the walls, but there have been some close calls, so I hear. My sister did offer me what I believe to be a sincere apology for her actions and words. I can accept that she didn't mean to cause me difficulties by giving the kids a bath at that time, and I have, after consideration, forgiven her for that part, even though the stress of the whole situation has left me in a worse state than I've been in some years. I did tell her plainly that the part I can't forgive is what she said to my nieces about me that was so degrading and worse, parroted by them. I've not spent a lot of time with them since the event. I can't unhear those words, and frankly they still haunt me, especially when I hear it from a toddler's lips. I have told her that it's going to take a lot for her to earn forgiveness for that from me, which caused another argument about how sensitive I am about my condition, and that I should just own it, and stop whining and hiding, and be a positive example instead. So we are not currently on speaking terms. My mum and other siblings have also been pulled into it, and all apart from her twin sister are more sympathetic to my point of view, or at least to my desire to not flaunt my condition. Even my youngest sister is shocked at her behavior and has vowed to teach the kids better than their mum's example. She babysits them on a semi-regular basis. Her twin is trying to stay neutral and broker peace, but I'm trying to stand firm. I love my family, but I can't forgive the malice in what she said to my nieces about me. It took my partner and I only about a day to repair and clean after them. We had a few surprises we didn't expect to have to deal with. A few handles on drawers that were damaged, some wet cushions hidden under the bed, etc. But nothing that required painting or extensive repairs. Drawer handles screwed back on, cushions got washed, walls got scrubbed. To answer the DMs I've had since my post, health-wise I'm okay, but not great. I'm probably going to be having a rough time over the next few weeks, but it's going to be fine as soon as I get on top of it again. If I've missed something from the update that you wanted to know about, please drop a question in the comments, and I'll try to answer as swiftly as I can. And now in the comments, good for you. I'm glad you at least have your home back and some peace of mind that you can use the restroom as necessary. As for the rest, hopefully that will sort itself out in time. And OP replies, we will see. I'm worried for her and the kids, but I just can't forgive her for her words. Maybe one day if I'm drunk and in a really good mood, but that's a stretch. Quote, which caused another argument about how sensitive I am and won't stop whining and hiding. That is quite an ironic thing for her to say, considering she literally used you and your condition as a negative example to try to scare her kids into potty training. Refusing to let her degrade you is owning it. I'm glad you had the guts to stand up for yourself, and I'm happy your living situation is, presumably, more peaceful. And OP replies, well, it's a sort of peaceful. Now I get a pretty constant flow of my other siblings and my mum coming and checking in on me. I seem to have at least 3 visitors a day. My poor kettle is getting overworked, but that is definitely a nice problem to have. I'm glad that your sister has a place to stay with her kids for now, and that you were able to get the house cleaned. I'm also glad that she apologized for the bath timing. Her other comments, however, are degrading and baffling, and it sounds like she is just trying to deflect. She wants you to own it, while at the same time using you as a cautionary tale for her children? One, that doesn't even work, since it's a medical condition rather than a behavioral one. That's bratty and unkind. I suspect she's embarrassed and doesn't want to admit it, or maybe the type who believes in tough love. But either way, I get why you are keeping your distance currently. Hopefully she'll cool down and wise up. And OP replies, I'm more of the thought that she's jealous of something in my life, as suggested by a commenter on the original post. I can't think what it would be, but it's my suspicion. As far as I'm concerned, I do own my condition, but I own it in ways that might not make sense if you don't live my life, and I prefer it not to be known by people who know my face, but I've always preferred it that way. I didn't even tell my younger siblings, she's one of 3 that are younger than me, until they were in my mid-teens, because I didn't want them to have to know my shame. I really don't think she understands how emotionally distressing being a young adult who has to cope with needing nappies is. The worst sort of liar is a hypocrite, because they don't even know when they are lying. OP's sister is a hypocrite and has been since day dot. Making out she's just being a good mum by educating her kids, then just being a good sister by forcing you to own it. Her actions have shown her not to be a great mum, nor a great sister. Am I the asshole for not helping my sister and husband pay for their IVF treatment using my inheritance despite having no immediate use for it? So I am 25 female and my sister Ella is 31 female. My husband equals Tom, and her husband equals John. Ella is bisexual, and our parents were religious AF. So when she brought home a girlfriend in high school, they kicked her out. She never got an inheritance when our mum died. The both of us had cut contact with our parents, but I still decided to accept the money because I figured it's the one good thing to come out of our abusive life, so why not? The legal side of things we finalized a week ago. Ella and John came to see me while Tom was at work and told me they wanted to talk about something. They said that they had exhausted all of their fertility money and didn't have enough to try IVF again. I could see where this was going, so I just said, "I'm sorry, Ella. I understand, and I was thinking about this as well, and Tom thinks that this is the right thing to do too. You should have half of the money. You deserve it." John tells me that's not what they wanted to talk about, but that they wanted all of the money. I'm a bit taken aback. Apparently half won't be enough. I tell them that I was going to use my part, or if she didn't want the half, all of it, for my daughter's college fund and another fund for her to use for whatever she wishes during her teenage years. I remind Ella that we always promised each other that our children will be financially well off because we never had that growing up. Where I live, college is extremely expensive, so despite my daughter being only 3, Tom and I wanted to start this for her. I tell Ella and John all of this, and Ella is just very upset at this point. John is more willing to have a conversation though. She comes back from the kitchen and says I'm rubbing the fact that I'm a mother in her face. I'm angry by this point because I thought she loved my daughter like her own. Ella said I was sabotaging her and that I owed her for looking after me when we were kids. John said since Ella faced more struggles, she deserved it all despite knowing full well our parents hurt me regularly as well. I was just not prepared to fight. My daughter needed my attention, and I wanted Tom to be on my side because Ella was acting aggressive. I asked them to leave and I called Tom. We discussed this again and agreed that we shouldn't give them the money. Ella calls me and I pick up, and she tells me she has to try again, and that her relationship is rocky because they are frustrated they can't have a kid. I told her I would not give her the entire amount and just hung up. I feel guilty about all of this now, but I don't know if I should. Maybe since I don't have an immediate use for the money, I should have given it to her? Like, am I an asshole? Now in the comments, quote, "You should have half of the money, you deserve it." John tells me that's not what they wanted to talk about, but that they wanted all of the money. What the F? You offered an equal split and she went, "Nope, I want it all," and is trying to pull out every emotionally manipulative tool in the book to get what she wants. Seems she turned out more like her mother than she'd like to admit. You were not the asshole, and you should just flat out tell her that if either her or John bring up wanting more than half ever again, they will get nothing. IVF is crazy expensive too, and unfortunately, it doesn't always work. OP, what would happen if you hypothetically give Ella the money and the IVF doesn't work? I still think you're not the asshole since she's entitled to half, and you're entitled to yours as well. Legally, Ella is entitled to nothing, so this kind of fairy is just something else. I missed the part at the end where Ella is saying her and her husband's relationship is rocky and want to try again for that reason. OP, do not give her the money. Children should never be used as a way to stabilize a rocky relationship. And OP replies, "You have a point. Thank you for pointing that out." My auntie and uncle had a make-up baby after being separated for 5 years. It did not solve their dysfunctional relationship, and at one point, the child even stated to his father he thought he hated him. Babies don't fix problems. They add stress to strained relationships. If they are already rocky, the last thing you want is to punish a child by making them the magic problem fixer. I cannot imagine being in a rocky relationship and thinking, I should add a lack of sleep and hormonal surge to this mix. The scary thing is, this thinking is so common. We did some premarital counseling with our church, and one thing they were very clear on was to make sure we understood if we were having problems that a baby will absolutely not solve them. Our mentor couple actually strongly advised we wait a minimum of a year before even trying for a baby because there is so many adjustments anyway when you are newly married that throwing hormones and medical concerns in isn't helping. And after struggling with infertility and then a long NICU stay, I can honestly say I have seen either of those things alone destroy marriages that were described as strong, healthy, happy, and functioning. Going in, one mum found herself homeless living in her car by the time the baby was ready to come home because her significant other buckled under the weight of the NICU and left, never to be seen or heard from again, presumably. Of course, no one thinks going in any of these things will happen to them. Obviously, it's an other people problem. 1 in 8 couples will experience infertility of some sort, can be primary or secondary. 1 in 10 babies are born prematurely, before 37 weeks of pregnancy. 1 in 100 babies are born with a congenital heart defect. And it's easy to write off those of us who had pregnancy and birth horror stories as unhealthy or something like that. But the majority of the time, there was absolutely nothing Mum did wrong. It just happened to happen to her. And she was no less healthy than the next person next to her who had a healthy pregnancy and baby. That's the thing that honestly makes it so insidious. It can happen to anyone. Not the arsehole. I think you were right and fair to offer to split the money with her, but in no way should she get all of it. This is the chance for you to ensure your child's future, and as her mother, it's only right for you to do so. Ella can look for alternate ways to become a mother that doesn't involve spending your part of the inheritance. Fertility problems are super unfortunate, but it doesn't give her the right to take your daughter's college money. And OP replies, I think some of her friends have suggested that in the past, but she has always wanted a biological child of her own, similar to a normal pregnancy. Thank you for the help. Well, then she has to figure out how to do that with half of the inheritance. This isn't life or death. You are not denying her cancer treatments. She is not on the brink of homelessness or anything. These are fertility treatments, which are a luxury. I think you should still give her her half. Not leaving her any money was a bigoted move. I think it is rightfully hers, but not more than that. Half will help cover the costs and the rest they can figure out on their own. If she wants to go on some sort of payment plan where she pays you back over the next several years, maybe you can discuss that. And now on to the update. Hello, I apologize for the update being so late, almost a month. I got caught up with everything that was going on, but now that I have a moment, I thought I'd write this since a lot of you guys still want an update. I got a lot of helpful tips, and also understood that I was so not the asshole. The relief I felt was huge, so thanks for helping me out. I didn't reach out to Ella or John like I initially planned, now that I knew I had nothing to apologize for. A few days after though, John came over, alone to my house, and apologized for what Ella said. But I was dumb for thinking they would stop there because John asked me about the money again. They still felt like they deserved all the money. Luckily for me, I did not have to deal with all of this for the second time since Tom was home and they talked. It ended with John threatening to sue and whatnot. Ella began posting the nastiest things on Facebook, and it was embarrassing to explain everything to my friends. I just felt like I had to cut off contact. They were being aggressive and just overall so horrible to my family. I told Ella that I did not want to have contact with her anymore and blocked them all. Ella showed up with John again though, this time asking for half of the money. Tom and I talked about this, and we decided not to give them anything. We offered it to them, even after the incident, and all they did was insult us. We are going to use it for our daughter's future. So, I know that's a sad update, but I got messages yesterday asking for one that I thought I'd still make a post. We talked to our lawyer, and they can't really do anything legally, and they probably won't even try because they have no money. To clarify some things, some people mentioned how IVF is not that expensive, but Ella chose a very particular clinic. It's their second time doing the cycle, so they decided to go for a more expensive option, though I don't know why. Hence why they needed more than their half. At least this is what they told me. We had a poor childhood but got a big inheritance because our parents were rich. They just didn't spend any money on us. A lot of you think setting up a teen fund for my daughter would spoil her, but it's not for anything she might want for fun. It's just an emergency fund that we wanted to set up so she could use it until she turns 18 in case of emergencies. Or if she wants a car, or for traveling, and other things not related to college. Now in the comments, I think by cutting them off, you made the best and healthiest choice for your family. Insulting people isn't a way to convince them to hand over money to you. Glad you understand you absolutely are not the asshole here. And OP replies, thank you, smiley face. I couldn't believe the audacity of them. Glad they're getting buggerole. She walked up to you with her hand out and slapped you with it. Not once, but several times. Ditto her husband. I hope you feel more at peace now. Thank you for the update. I'm so glad that you stood firm. Ella and John's behavior says a lot about who they are as people. Obviously, your relationship didn't mean much to them. I'm sorry you had to deal with online harassments, as well as them showing up unannounced at your home. Have you considered getting a restraining order? And OP replies, thank you. Not really. Tom did mention it, but for the past 2 days, they haven't bothered us at all. So hopefully this is the end of all of this. Keep that restraining order as an option though. It may be necessary to keep 2. At least keep something on file with the police. It's good that your lawyer is aware of the situation so he knows that they were poking around. And yeah, let them try to sue. Like you said, they have no money. They also have no money for IVF, so how would they pay a lawyer? Sad to hear that, but it sometimes happens. It's probably for the best that they don't use a baby to fix the marriage. If they keep coming over, get your lawyer to send out a cease and desist letter and write down all the times they come over to harass you for money. If need be, then you can get a restraining order if they keep bugging you. Cutting them off is probably smart, and for the best. As my father says, just because they're family doesn't mean you have to like them or see them. And OP says, your father is very wise. Our next post is titled, Am I the Asshole for Telling My Honest Opinion on My Sister's Proposal? My sister has been dating a guy for about 5 years now. My parents don't really like him. They think she could do better. She got engaged last Sunday, and I am really happy for her. We had a Zoom call today, and she was not attending. My mum told me the story of how he proposed. He had apparently proposed while she was having breakfast on Sunday at home. Mum asked me for my opinion on it. I said it was pretty low effort and a bit weird. My brother interjected and said that she seemed happy, and I agreed and I let the subject drop. Today, my sister texted me. She told me that she didn't care what others thought and I should be just happy for her. She was happy with it. She was pretty curt and I could see that she was pissed off from the texts. She is usually the sanest of the siblings, so I know I have screwed up here. I feel like an asshole because I should have just kept my mouth shut, and I mean it was pretty low effort though. So I wasn't wrong per se, but it was one of those times where I should have just kept my mouth shut. She wasn't even in the call, but yeah, I should just stay quiet. Now in the comments, seriously, you took that softball bait pitch from your mum, who thinks your sister could do better, and you weaponized it into a nuke for your mum to drop on your sister after she got engaged? That seems to be an incredulous level of naivety. You're the asshole, reeks of intention, and in my opinion, defending something with, "It was my honest opinion," is just a cover for, "I was an asshole." You're the asshole. Have you considered that his proposal fit their relationship and personalities? Maybe a quiet proposal at their home was perfect and sweet and everything she wanted. An intimate moment that didn't require a lot of show or an audience. If you want to have some big to-do when you propose or get proposed to, power to you. Me? I want something private and personal, without fanfare or huge gestures. The point is, every person is different. You shouldn't judge his proposal as low effort because it's not what you would want or what you would do. You should call your sister and apologize for being a judgmental dick. Exactly. I'd die of embarrassment if my husband had done something extravagant and big. I would as well. I'm a private person and I don't want attention on me. You're the asshole and so is your mum for asking the question and getting you to answer it. There seems to be pressure for over-the-top, super special proposals for social media and bragging rights maybe. When in reality, all that matters is the love between two people. Proposing over breakfast can be very special to the people involved. You diminished that joy for them. And now on to the update. Yeah, I was the asshole. I reached out to my sister and apologized. She said it was okay, but I should be less judgmental. She also kinda told me the actual proposal. He wrote her a 5-page letter. 5 pages. That is a lot of effort. Mum skipped over that detail when she told us. I was baited by Mum and fell for it like an idiot. I shouldn't have. That was my mistake. It's just not my idea of romantic, but yeah, that's fine because my sister has always been a sucker for letters. I feel like a major fool for believing Mum. I should have measured my words and not blindly believed Mum. That's my bad. Total F up on my part, but yeah, things are fine between my sister and me. And now in the comments, nice to hear you apologized. I'd keep this in mind when you listen to your mum in the future though. That was a really disingenuous way to retell the story. And OP replies, I feel like an idiot because she has done the same before. When my brother got a job, he didn't buy me anything with his first salary, and I didn't really care. My mum came over and asked me if he had bought me anything or taken me out for dinner, and I said no. Next week, he took me out to dinner, and he said that Mum told him I was whining about him not taking me out. I just answered her question with a no, and she presented it as if I brought it up. What the hell? Sounds like she's triangulating. Like she's manufacturing drama because she's talking to each of you individually about the others, twisting your words, and then misrepresenting them to the other sibling. Maybe have a talk to your brother and sister about talking to each other first, about things that your mum mentions, and potentially actually confront your mother about what she's doing. Sure, you were a bit judgmental here, even if your sister's engagement had just been at breakfast, but your mum fed you a twisted story and then took your comments straight back to your sister, who thought you said her fiancé's 5-page proposal letter in breakfast was low effort. Your comment was still judgmental in that moment, but your mum manufactured it so you looked like a bigger asshole. I'm glad you apologized and your relationship with your sister survived. You and your siblings need to make an agreement that you don't talk about each other with your mother, and that you don't believe anything she says about each other until the person in question confirms they did and said the thing. Mum says something like, "Did you know that your brother did this and that? What do you think?" And you and your sister would say, "I'll wait until I get the full story from him. Did you see they're fixing some potholes on Main Street?" i.e., change the subject. I'm glad you apologized. But remember, not everyone wants everything the same. One person's big production is another person's nightmare. One person's modest scenario might be just perfect, or the opposite, and your mother sounds like a piece of work. Am I the asshole for refusing to walk my daughter down the aisle? My daughter and I haven't spoken in years. When she was 15, she found out she wasn't my biological daughter, and my wife had cheated on me years ago with a friend. As it turns out, this so-called friend was suddenly interested in playing dad. My wife and I divorced, my daughter learned the truth, and I told her I still loved her no matter what. Of course, she was interested now in getting to know her biological father, and while it hurt, I tried to accept that. She started pulling away from me after that. Even when trying to still do things together as a family, she was no longer interested. The last straw was when she was 20 and living at my house. We were arguing because she had dropped from her college courses, hadn't done anything for 3 months, and was mad because I told her she either needed to go to school or work if she wants to stay here for free. She told me I'm not her real dad, so stop pretending like I am, and she'll just go stay with her real father. That broke me, honestly. But I told her if that's how she really feels, then there is really nothing left to say between us. And she did move out to go live with him. I was depressed for a very long time, and I drank so much. My son, 24 male, was my only reason to keep moving forward. For the first couple years, I reached out to my daughter. She wanted no contact, and I learned to accept that and move on. It helped me find more peace in my life. My son stopped talking to her for a while over this and was angry with her. They still chat sometimes, which doesn't bother me at all. Through him, I learned her biological father died in October of 2019, and also that she's engaged. She reached out to me. First, that she knows that we haven't talked in a while, but wants to ask me if I'd be willing to walk her down the aisle. After a pretty long message about how much she hurt me in the past with her actions, I told her no. She didn't want me to be her father anymore, so I learned to no longer view her as my daughter. This turned into a fight between us because, according to her, it's not her fault she wanted to know her real dad. And I agreed with her. It's not. But what was her fault was how she treated me ever since. In my mind, I know if he hadn't passed, we wouldn't even be speaking right now. It ended with telling her that I hope she enjoys her wedding, but I want no part of it or her life. My son has told me that she's ranting to my family that I'm ruining her day, and she thought parents are supposed to love their kids unconditionally. My brother seems to think now that I'm being an asshole, and this is my chance to be in her life again. But I have no interest in that. Still seems everyone has a strong opinion on it that I'm making it difficult for my daughter to have the wedding that she wants when it would mean a lot to her. My son is on my side, but the comments are still wearing me down, and just for the sake of my sanity, am I being an asshole? In my opinion, when you said, yeah, she wouldn't be speaking to me right now if he was alive, that really hits hard, that one right there. I agree with you. It seems that she just wants what's best for her wedding day and what will look best. She doesn't genuinely want you back in her life. If she was genuine about it, she would have reached out to you way before now and probably apologized for it. From what I can see here, she's shown no willingness to change, and I don't think you should play this game with her. I think you should keep your distance. I'm gonna go not the asshole. Now in the comments, not the asshole. She decided that you are not her father in any capacity. You've respected that. Now that the other guy is dead, she doesn't get to change the rules. She doesn't want you, she wants someone to play a part. Maybe your son can be the one to give her away instead. And OP replies, maybe, but he has already said he is not going to the wedding. Not over this, he just doesn't want to. I don't know what his response would be if she asked him. They are not close despite talking every now and then. She can have her mum do it. My significant other lost her father when she was young due to a disease. She's having her mum walk her down the aisle. It doesn't have to be your father, just someone important in your life, which she deemed you weren't when she cut contact. You are not ruining her big day by saying no. She is making this a much bigger issue than it needed to be. And it doesn't have to be anyone. A bride can legit walk down by herself. I have a friend with a living father, stepfather, and 4 uncles. She walked alone. One of her uncles asked what the hell she was thinking, saying that she was going to walk alone, and her reply was something to the effect that this isn't the Dark Ages, where she belongs to her father until he hands her over to her husband, so she doesn't need an escort. And her dad had no problem with that. Not the asshole. Wow, OP. I'm so sorry to read through your story, and some people may disagree, but I really don't think you're the asshole. You attempted contact throughout the years, but it wasn't you that became distant, it was your daughter. She wanted to get to know her bio dad. Nothing wrong with that, but at the expense of becoming distant and eventually having no contact with you, her dad who had been there for her since she was born. Now the bio dad isn't there to walk her down the aisle. OP, if she wanted you at her wedding, you would have gotten an invitation and not become a stand-in for deceased bio dad. Why can't her brother walk her down the aisle? Personally, I think she just wants her wedding to look good, irrespective of how you feel. Not the asshole at all. And OP replies, he said he's not going to the wedding regardless, but I'm not sure if she would ask him. Hi OP, I'm adopted. It is entirely possible to have a relationship with multiple sets of parents. When I found my bio dad, my adoptive dad invited him to a Father's Day barbecue. My bio dad asked if he would be stepping on his toes, and my adoptive dad said, more people loving my daughter is a good thing. And to edit, it seems my point wasn't clear. I was trying to illustrate it is possible. Many people treat it as an only room in your heart for one dad situation. She could have been too immature to understand that she can love both. If OP finds her actions unforgivable, I can see why, but the only reason my story seems so extraordinary is because it is seen as a default to choose one or the other. And now on to the update. Thank you for your support, especially those fellow parents who reached out in my messages. Advice, judgment, and suggestions on what to do about my family. It took sending a mass text to everyone who wouldn't leave me alone about this. Took me some time to think of what to write and clear my head from everything. The reminder of everything that I did over the years to try to be in her life and where that all ended, how detrimental it was to my mental health, they all remember how it was like, how much it put me in a dark place that took lots of therapy and the need to be there for my son to get out of. My brother called me after. He apologized for the way he was pushing this. We had a much longer conversation. I told him my decision to remain out of her life was final. So he respected that. Since no one else has said anything, I'm hoping that means everybody else got the message. Best thing someone suggested here was blocking out the others saying things and her. It wasn't doing my mind any good. I spoke to her over the phone to talk about the way she's been behaving online and the others in the family. I apologized for how things happened and wish she didn't have to deal with these life-altering moments at such a young age. She made her choices for the past 6 years just the way I have. Even asked her to be honest with herself and answer, not for me, that if her biological father hadn't passed, would we be here right now speaking to each other? She didn't say anything, but that's fine. It's a question for her to honestly answer to herself. Like I did before, I told her to enjoy the wedding and I hope it's a lovely, healthy marriage. And this door to our relationship is closed. I hope that she could find peace with that and enjoy her life the way I have. Conversation ended shortly after that. She didn't say if she would stop saying anything about me online, so I just made sure to block her and others on her mother's side of the family to make sure there was no more bothering. This is the peace of mind I needed, and I'm glad to have taken up this advice. Now in the comments, good for you, my friend. I'm glad your brother came around and you had a good talk. More will follow. I'm touched that you treated her kind and closed the door. Stay strong. And OP replies, I'm glad too. We are not usually at odds like this, so it didn't feel right for us to have this conflict with each other. Well, thanks for the update, OP. I hope you have a more peaceful future ahead without the drama. And OP says, thank you. I've been more at peace over the last few days. Honestly, having just read the original and now the update, I have to tell you that you sound like the kind of person anyone should be thankful to have as a dad. She totally cut off her nose to spite her face, and now she's feeling the repercussions. Let her stew in her own selfishness, and you go and have a great life with your son. Hell, he was even very understanding in the beginning. He made it clear she wasn't at fault, her mum was. So many everywhere lump the kid in as if they forgot the kid was a victim too, born into family drama they didn't even help create. OP was an amazing dad, and his ex-wife totally screwed the pooch on this dude. And his ex-wife's daughter clearly cut off her nose despite her face. It's good to hear that you worked things out with your brother, and he apologized. It's good to hear that you have peace of mind. You have made the right decision, though it wasn't an easy one. And you say that she didn't say anything. Maybe deep inside, she knows the answer and wasn't willing to voice it. And OP replies, as long as she knows what the true answer to that is, it doesn't matter if she told me or not. It's just something I wanted her to really reflect on. Our next post is titled, Am I the asshole for taking in my sister without giving heads up to my husband? Hear me out. I was at my parents' place. I was over to help out my mum with the garden. My younger sister is staying at home for college. It seems Dad was yelling at her about something. He checked her phone and found that she is a lesbian. My mum was just watching her yell at him and backing him up. My sister was just crying. I'm a pretty soft-spoken person, and I couldn't stop my dad from yelling, but when he was done, I told her to pack her stuff and took her to my place. She is a pretty sensitive person, and my parents are pretty assertive and rude sometimes. I tried to text my husband, but he was in a meeting, and he rarely checks his phone while he works. He was surprised to find my sister in our home. I talked to him about it, and he's okay with it, but he's upset on 2 counts. The first being that I didn't give him any heads up, and he hates being surprised by anything, and that he'll have to give up his quiet room, which he uses to de-stress after work. He just hates having things jumped on him. He knows that she has to stay here for a while, and it makes sense. I feel like an asshole, as I should have done things a bit more calmly. I should have talked to my husband before getting her out of there. I was pretty emotional during this whole thing. It was one of the worst things I have ever witnessed. I know how much he loves his room and how great it has been to his mental health to have a place to be alone and process things. It has helped our relationship a lot. I feel like I'm not prioritizing him here, and I took a major decision without consulting him. Now in the comments, no assholes here. You protected your sister, and that makes sense. In an emergency, sometimes you have to do things right now, and you didn't try to not tell him. Things just came to a head in that moment. He is allowed to be annoyed that there wasn't a discussion and that he's lost quiet space. I wonder if there's a way to fix the loss of his quiet space though. Like another room, he gets an hour interrupted time in his bedroom, etc. There's a reason people spend a long time in the bathroom sometimes. My dad used to spend a couple hours reading and pooping in the bathroom when we were kids. Now that I'm an adult, I totally get it. 4 kids and multiple foster kids, it was the only place for some quiet. It's the kitchen for me. A while ago, anytime a kid or husband came in while I was chilling on the laptop or reading a magazine, I would ask them while they're here to unload the dishwasher or mop the floor or start dinner. Nobody comes in now while I'm there, or they quietly sneak in and grab a snack, and then they run like Usain Bolt. A lot of the time I have already emptied the dishwasher, but they never check. They just suddenly need the bathroom or have to, go do that thing, the thingamabobber that they've been meaning to do. My mother-in-law taught me this trick, and it's kept my sanity over lockdown. No assholes here. Of course he's thrown off by a new person in the house without prior discussion, but it sounds like he'll get over it. Sure, it would have been nice to do this calmly and less urgently, but you did what you had to do to help your sister. And no assholes here. You needed to get your sister out of a bad situation, and with basically no notice. You did try to inform your husband, but he didn't happen to check his phone after work, so he got surprised. As someone who also considers home a quiet sanctuary, I can see why your husband is a bit distressed. Very private people feel obligated to behave differently when others are in their house, and it can be exhausting to feel like you have to be on all the time and not really have anywhere to escape to decompress. By what you wrote in your post, your husband logically understands why your sister is there. If he's seen how your parents treat her, then he probably even agrees with getting her out. Still, since he values his privacy and space, I think you and he should sit down and do some brainstorming about how to help support your sister long term. I don't think she should stay past the end of summer. That's presuming hubby can manage having a house guest even that long. So first priority is figuring out where she will live when her classes resume in the fall. Once that's settled, decide between you if you are both okay with her living with you for the rest of the summer, or if she needs to find somewhere else to live before then. And now on to the update. This is a strange update. My sister moved out and ended up leaving within a month, but her stay with us was illuminating in many ways. The things my sister pointed out to me helped me realize that our marriage was designed to cater to all his wants and to meet bare minimums of my needs. I tried to bring this up with him. Small things which could make me feel better, but he didn't want to. I suggested couples therapy, and he thought it was just a process of blame being pinned on one of us. I started therapy with my own money, and he was upset that I was wasting it when I was perfectly fine. I started to paint again, something that he didn't like, and he didn't scream at me. He just changed his routine a little so that I had less time to paint and to make a mess, which he had to witness while I painted. My marriage was built around not making him sad. Throughout the relationship, I was the one who was responsible for his feelings, and I was the one who had to set mine aside to make him happy. I got out, and I am living with my sister. They had an extra room they had been looking to sublet, and I took them up on it. It's funny that I end up in the same position that my sister started out the post in. I am not happier. I miss him, and I have spent almost 9 years with him, but it's liberating not to spend hours molding myself to make him happy. I am a lot more calmer now. I really want to thank the commenters who planted the seeds of doubt about my husband. Now in the comments, no one person can ever be responsible for the feelings of someone else. That is too much to ask and too big of a burden to place on someone you love. I'm glad you were able to help your sister while gaining perspective. I hope you find continued peace. My abusive father always made it my mum's responsibility to make him happy, and since he struggled with depression, he blamed that on her too. No one is ever responsible for another person's feelings, and if someone tries to make you feel responsible, you need to create a boundary very quickly. I was really surprised that the original top comments were saying no arseholes here. I didn't feel like your now ex had any right to be mad that he didn't get a warning, and it seemed crazy to me that he was more upset at losing his quiet room than your sister's situation. While he had a right to be a bit taken aback, the right response to your sister's situation should have been, "Oh my god, how awful. Of course she can stay here until we can sort something more permanent out." You made a brave, bold move, and I'm glad that you are healing. Remember that it is never selfish to take care of yourself, and sometimes that means putting yourself first. I'm happy for you, even if this will be a challenging time for you. You should be very proud of yourself. What struck me was the fact that he complained about not getting any warning when OP literally said that she tried calling and texting him on the way home. Given the situation, how much notice was he expecting? Was she supposed to leave her sister in a dangerous situation for several days just to make sure that he was good and ready to give up his quiet room? Exactly this. Like, I understand him being a bit surprised, perturbed even, but that's surely got to be put on the back burner given the situation. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed that episode today. This is the outro. Everyone say hello to Outro Marky. Bit of a weird situation with that second story. I guess in hindsight it does look like he was quite controlling there, and that really he didn't have many excuses. Like, I can kind of see now why she left him for that, because that seems like an odd reaction, you might say. Anyway, those are my thoughts on that. I hope you guys have a good one, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye!